Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Bailey saying hi. Bailey, they can't see you. Look, you gotta put your head up there. Say hi to the peoples. Hola, boa tarde. No, right? Boa night? Boa night. Bailey said, it's not afternoon, mommy. It's actually nighttime. Hopefully you can see and hear me. I had to move a couple things at the last second since little fur baby wanted to jump on mommy's lap. I hope you are doing well. Yeah, it is Thursday, my favorite day of the week because I get to hang out and kiki with y'all. So, who am I? So, for those of you who do not know me, I'm Krishan Wright. I'm the founder of Blaxit Global and the host of the Blaxit Global podcast. Blaxit Global is here to empower and inspire you to move abroad. So, um, working on not sounding as nasally. So, for those of you who have been listening to the podcast and waiting for the season finale, I could not record this week because the voice was not voicing. So, give it a couple days and I will try and record. But I'm sure you did not want to hear this voice in this present. But I'm feeling much better. Um, let's see. I just got back, as you know. I was last week. I was in Amsterdam with my travel partner, who's in the comments. And thank you for the feedback for those of you who tuned in for last week's discussion with Maureen. We were hooping and hollering up in Amsterdam. We went on to travel to Nice in the south of France, headed over to Monte Carlo, Monaco, and that was the weekend of the Grand Prix. So, baby, we were living the high life. It was yacht o'clock. You know me, I love my yachts. Yacht o'clock. Um, awesome dinner. Oh my gosh. We ate in Monte Carlo at this two-star Michelin restaurant. The head chef is Black. He's from Martinique. And ooh, baby, best dining experience of my life. And then, of course, as I'm dining and looking out at the water and seeing all the yachts, Mama had some fun. And of course, in true Krishan fashion, I get home and what do? Book another trip. So next month, y'all will be seeing me somewhere else. TBD, I'm gonna let you know where it is. But in the meantime, I just said I'm glowing. I don't know if I'm glowing or sweating. Thank you. Because now it is 90 degrees here in Lisbon, which is an improvement from when I was in Amsterdam. It was 57, and it was beautiful weather in the south of France. Oh my goodness! But yes, now we're in the hot weather. International streets. I know. Ooh, baby, what? I just stay booking trips. My goodness. So, want to say hey to everybody who's first in the chat. Hey, have a nice day. Oh, look, we are going to get to that tonight. Yes, thanks for tuning in. We definitely going to be getting to that. Hey, girl. Hey. Tanya's in the house. Happy Thursday. Kay Renee. Hey, Jametta. How you doing? Hey. Cheryl, PhD, a channel member. You too can be a channel member. The Howards. Hey, y'all. How are you? Harlem Minded is in the house. Yes, K Renee said, hit the thumbs up, y'all. Action VJ, hey, how you doing? Let's see. I think, did I get everybody? Igami's here. Hey, Greta. Thank you. Yes, I made some tea and I'm on the tail end. But thank you all. Also, in the announcements, so last week, like I said, I was in Amsterdam, and then we went on to travel. But I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that I had done a media appearance. So actually, when I landed in Amsterdam, about 2 hours after I landed, I did a television interview with a European outlet, and that interview is now live. So it is here. I'm going to drop it in the chat for those of you who want to see it. It's about why are US people moving abroad? So give it a watch. Not now. Give it a watch. Leave some things in the comments. Let them know that you want to see more of Krishan Wright. Okay. Let's see. What other announcements do I have to have? Oh, so I think I mentioned it last week. I'll mention it again. So we have our 2 meetups in October. The one on October 24th, which is the Exodus Summit meetup, that is sold out. But have no fear. We gonna yacht it up the day before on October 23rd for the Blaxit Global 5-year anniversary. Yay! Because Blaxit Global is actually turning 5 next month. But Mama's gonna be celebrating her birthday. So we're gonna be celebrating in October. So if you are interested and you want to kiki it up with us, let's see. Let me see. Getting my trusty link. I had an awesome vacation. Yes. You can go to our events page and check it out. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I did not even know that it was out because I was like, oh, I haven't even caught up on all my emails since I've been gone. I put the out of office on and everything. So there is that. Let's see. What do I want to say? I think that was it. I think that was all the big announcements. Okay, so on to tonight's topic. So I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, and obviously there's a lot going on in the States. And as a content creator, right, who talks this talk and who walks the walk, right? I've been on this journey for several years. But I realized, or it occurred to me, that when I was in the States, when I was in New Jersey, I started Blaxit Global while I was living in New Jersey, and seeing different people who I follow, who've become friends. And over the years, I started to reflect on my journey. And I made the decision to finally move abroad in January of 2017. But I didn't move abroad until September of 2023, right? So that was 6 whole years. And a lot happened in my life in those 6 years. A lot happened, outside of, my immediate peer group and friends. A lot happened in the world. And I was like, wow, a lot of us are on this journey who have made the move, who are inspiring people to move, some who are in the process of moving. But what happens to that person who is 3, 5 years out, right? For me, I had 2 children, and there was no way that I could leave them while they were minors. And also, I'm divorced. And so, my kids are grown now, but at the time, there was no way that we were going to be able to make that happen. Because when you have, a divorce and you have minor children, unless that other parent is willing to sign the papers, you got to pretty much ride it out. Right. And so I had resigned myself that I was going to be the one who had to ride it out. And somebody is probably sitting there with either the same set of circumstances or have different, life situations. That means that they can't. They want to, but they can't. Not right now. So I don't want those people to feel left out or deflated, or that there isn't a plan to move forward. And so I figured tonight I was going to share a little bit about my own experience and kind of help those of you who might be in similar circumstances. So that's what we're going to talk tonight about. Hey, Katrina's in the house. Oh, hey, Jackie. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're having a good time. Yes, thank you, Greta. Yes, I wanted to get into it for sure. So, some of this is, like I said, going to be, talking about my own journey, and then some of it is I definitely want to, um, talk about where you are. So for me, when I look back on 2017, 2018, I've talked about it on this channel before. I've had, several job layoffs, trying to rebuild my financial situation. Also, I had my son leave the nest. We all know, we've all experienced, the global pandemic. And really, it was during that time that Blaxit Global was born. And that was a time when the world was on fire. And I thought that the 3 years that I had left felt like 30. And when people are in, similar situations, you might be feeling, the heat of Trump 2.0, the stress of inflation, the uncertainty, and more of the divisiveness, and feeling like, wow, you wish your time was now. I don't want you to feel like it's not going to happen, because it is going to happen, right? You just have to figure out how, and that's what we're going to talk about, is how to stay motivated, right? Excuse me. So, picking up and go versus intentional planning. I like to reframe. So for me, I looked at my 6-year runway as not something that was like, oh gosh, I have to trudge through life for the next 6 years, right? Because if I focused on the things that I couldn't do, then it was going to keep me stuck where I was. So I had to think about what were the things that, where you going, Bailey? Sorry, she got happy feet. What were the things that I needed to do? So every year I set a goal for myself and what I wanted to accomplish that got me closer to my end goal, which was moving abroad. So that first year, I was just like, okay. I mean, at the time, it was New Zealand. And so I had scouted New Zealand the first time, knew in my heart that that's where I wanted to be. And then the first thing I did, excuse me, was figure out how much money I needed to have to move to New Zealand. Many countries have means tests, so you have to have financial fitness in order to live in that country. At the time, I thought I would be working. So in my mind, I was working for a multinational that I thought I could just get a job transfer. I knew I needed to have a certain amount of money to do it. So I laid out a plan and figured out how much money I needed to have, but then every year trying to break that big number down into smaller increments. How much did I need to invest? Invest. I didn't say save, invest, right? You're not going to save your way into retirement. You're not going to save your way into moving abroad. So I had to make my money work harder for me. Some people hear the word investing, they do this, right? They think they have to pay somebody, but there are tons of resources available. Investopedia, which is like Wikipedia for investing, which is a free resource. You can check that out. There are certain things that I've shared on this channel, different tools and calculators that you can use. If you're employed, you have probably resources through your employer. I would go to the library and take out books. I needed to build my financial acumen and build that muscle, train every day, like, I'm working out at the gym. And so I would read information on retirement, figure out how much I needed to put away to be aggressive, figured out where I could trim things. So I'm trying to think, it was 2017. Yeah. So one of the first things I did was I stopped relaxing my hair and I said, I'm going back to being natural. And that saved a lot of money, right? Excuse me. That saved a lot of money. So I learned how to do my hair. I was watching videos online on YouTube. Shout out to Natural 85, and thankfully she came out with her own hair care line, Melanin Hair Care, which I still use. But yeah, that's when I was like, okay, well, how much do I spend on my hair? And then I thought about how much have I spent getting my hair done in my lifetime. That was a crazy big number. And I was like, wait, I need just to learn how to do my own hair. I wasn't big at that time on like getting the nails done. I don't do eyelashes and all that stuff, but I was trying to find ways that I could cut money out and then I could reallocate that savings to something else. Let's see, at that time, around 2018, I moved closer to my job. At the time, I lived in Maplewood. And so to commute to my job took about 40 minutes. So then I cut my commute to 6 minutes, right? That saved on gas and allowed me to have a better quality of life because I wasn't shuttling myself all over the place. But again, these were some of the things that I did and reallocate that money that made the rest of the money work harder for me. Jess said she decluttered today. Yes. Yes, I know. We are going to get there. We're going to get you there. Yeah, look, they don't want to hear it, but you know what? Sometimes when people see, my job is to serve as an inspiration. And sometimes when people see your highlight reel, right? Me vacationing in these wonderful places, living the life that I'm living in Portugal, they don't see all of the decisions and micro steps I took to get to that big leap, right? It's just like investing, right? It's not, I have a very big portfolio, but I started from zero, right? Like everybody else. But it was those decisions that each one compounded on the other and enabled me to live the life that I have now. And so, yes, for some people, they're not going to want to hear it. And I hope that even if they, don't want to heed, that they do get to goal. My guess is that it may take them longer to get to goal, but I hope everybody gets what they want out of life. So yes, that was one of the big things that I had to do. And the transition with my family. So my children, I have 2 children. They're 5 years apart. And having to figure out like, okay, they knew that I was moving abroad. My mom knew, but there was definitely like my kids weren't as difficult. My mom took a little finessing, it's just like, well, why do you want to leave America? Who's going to be here with me? And all of those questions. And so sometimes when it was kind of like in the interview that I gave for the TRT roundtable, sometimes when we plan, there are people who want to plan in silence, right? And in secret. Then there's those of you that want to come in community, like our community Blaxit Global Passport, and you get resources and support. I find that people who get in community actually make better progress. And for me, creating my community helped me get to goal, right? Because I had people that I was inspiring and helping through the process that enabled me to continue to move forward and not default, right? But when you think about the stakeholders in your family or in your life, maybe family, maybe friends, it's going to be, I think, important to figure out what are the things that might be keeping them resistant, right? Somebody in your life is like, yeah, I love it. I think that's great for you. That's great. You have them in your corner. But for some people, they're like, they don't want to deal with the naysaying. And I get that completely, right? Because it goes back to what I said about building that muscle. In the beginning, I was not anywhere near, I'm moving too much. That's why the camera keeps moving. Um, I was nowhere near ready to deal with those difficult conversations with my mom. I had to build up to that. I had to kind of role play with myself. And instead of tackling like the big elephant all at once, I decided to take it into small increments, right? To understand what were her concerns, how could I overcome those concerns, and where we could meet in a happy medium. And for me and her, it had to be me respecting where she is in her life. She's in her 80s. And then also her recognizing that the way she lived her life when she was at my age is going to be inherently different because there's 30 years between us, right? And so the things that were available to her and the choices that she had available to her are going to be very different than my own choices. Um, so that's where I think that comes into play. And then for my kids, giving them reassurance. And with my daughter being in college, she didn't want me in New Zealand. It's about 28 hours of flying to get there. And so that's partly how I ended up moving to Portugal. So I think for some people, they may be dealing with, an elderly parent. They may be an only child, right? And so they're in a position where they can't leave. Or, I had Angela on the channel a few weeks ago, and she's moving to Portugal, and her husband is staying stateside, right? And so learning about the stakeholders in your life and what can be a go and what might need some finessing. So that was also part of my, runway. Um, I also wanted to kind of hedge my bets in terms of employment, right? I was working and I worked for a multinational at the time, and I was very transparent with the fact that I was intent on moving abroad and wanted to, because here's the deal. Now I'm 50, about to be 51 next month. And I had, garnered a lot of awards and accolades, throughout my career. And I just was at that point where I was done contorting, genuflecting, dealing with all the crap. And I wasn't trying to jump through hoops, right? I wasn't trying to deal with all the foolishness anymore. So I was like, look, I'm going to be very transparent. This is what my goal is. You're either going to support me in this effort or not, right? And for me, I just was like, okay, I already know what I have cooking in the oven in terms of my investments. So it lessened my reliance on them getting approval. And the reason why I share that is a lot of times because of how we work in the United States, most people work a W 2 and they work at the pleasure of their employer. Everybody is at will in the United States. Outside of the United States, though, employment operates very differently. People have contracts. A lot of people work for themselves. It's less about working traditional work in the way we see it in the United States. They have very, very generous vacation. And they also, a lot of countries have free healthcare. And so, you're not stuck at a job because the thought of leaving that job is going to leave you destitute because you won't have insurance or you have to pay an exorbitant amount to, afford that insurance. Or God forbid, you get into an accident and you become bankrupt. That doesn't happen in other countries. And so it was important for me to think strategically about where I wanted to be and then what benefits were available. And again, at the time I was looking at New Zealand. New Zealand is a superannuation country. And so I knew that if I moved there and I had worked for 10 years, which was the original plan, that I could get what their equivalent is of Social Security, because I was thinking long term, like, okay, I knew once I was going, I was never going back. So, what are the things that I could take advantage of and contribute to that would put me more firmly in their society and less reliant on the United States? Um, uh, I'm 50 until I'm 60. Yes, yes, yes. I'm just starring these questions as I see them. So yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat. Yeah, I see you, Action VJ. Um, so uh, the big thing that I wanted to share with you here is you can feel a sense of urgency. Like I felt the sense of urgency when everything was burning down in the pandemic, and I wanted to leave, and I had seen people that were leaving. But you're not alone if you don't see the path forward right away, right? For me, when I created Blaxit Global, it was great for me to have the opportunity to talk to people who were living their lives abroad and doing the thing that I wanted to do and sharing their journeys and how they did it. That gave me fuel for my fire. That gave me wind underneath my wings. That enabled me to reframe how I was looking at things. Because again, I was looking at it with the eyes and the mindset of moving in a traditional work environment. But by meeting these people, having them share their journeys, a lot of people were entrepreneurs. A lot of people had created location independent businesses. So that was one of the big things that changed everything. Mm. And so, creating a location independent business, which is what I shared during my talk at the Job Liberation Virtual Summit, kind of allowed me to think differently. And I built Blaxit Global while I was working full time. And I knew, and this is what I would say to anybody, right? If you're in this position and you know your timeline is 3 to 5 years out or longer, right? Hopefully within 3 to 5 years, build something if you need or want to create a location independent business, build it before you move, right? And the reason why that was so important was if I waited to create Blaxit Global once I moved to Portugal, you know how many things are going on? I had to find an apartment, had to furnish the apartment, had to get my health insurance, had to, do all this other stuff. Where would I have the time, right? One. And two, once I was abroad, then the stakes are so much higher because I would need that income to sustain my lifestyle, right? And the reality of it is that many businesses in general take 3 years to turn a profit, right? And so that is why I tell people, even if you figured out how to make $1, celebrate the first dollar that you made, right? Because that's a dollar you didn't have the day before, right? So now you have to figure out, how do I make more of that? And then again, invest, right? Because you want your money to make money babies. Okay. Uh, hey, hey, Phyllis. Phyllis is in the house. Okay. Um, so that is important. So let's talk about blueprint. So the first thing that I want you to do, when those of you who are in this 3 to 5 years, is cast your vision. Where do you want to go and why? And it may not be that you want to move to New Zealand. It might be that you don't even know what part of the world that you want to, but you want to move somewhere. This is, like I said, this is your ability to plan with intention. You don't have to pack the bags today. You have the gift of time, right? Look at this 3 to 5 year window or runway as a gift, right? You have the ability to be thoughtful and intentional. So, where in the world is inspiring you? What's sparking your curiosity? What episodes have you really gravitated to? What stories have you figured out how you're digesting, whether you're looking on YouTube or, surfing online and on Instagram and things like that? Cast your vision. And then, I had vision boards. I was cutting out stuff. I was listening to people. I had my favorite people that I was following, and then again, creating a community allowed me to broaden my scope right? And think bigger, not only about where I wanted to live, but the type of life that I wanted. When you're in the weeds and when you're trying to keep your head above water in the United States, it is so hard to see a path forward, right? It is so hard to stay inspired. There were days that I was depressed. There were days that I felt I was suffocating and drowning, right? Those are very real feelings. So acknowledge them for what they are, but don't stay in them, right? Find ways, whether it's listening to the podcast, watching your favorite YouTuber, but get that information and get yourself inspired. And then, like I said, think about your finances. For many people, they're looking at countries where the US dollar isn't the currency, right? It may be the reserve currency, but it's not the currency. And so you have to be thinking about your finances. How are you going to draw down your money? This is one of the things that I learned that I had to think differently about. And, if I had to do something differently about my move, I would have put more money in my brokerage account and not biased towards my retirement accounts. And I'll tell you why, right? So I'm almost 51 and I can't touch my retirement until I'm 59 and a half without a 10% penalty. But money you put in your brokerage account, you can access anytime, right? Because that's a taxable account. And so you have to think about, how are you going to access money? Is it going to be a mix of you pulling either retirement funds, brokerage funds, money from your location independent business? Are you getting a pension, Social Security? And then what currency or currencies versus the dollar, right? Are they stronger than the dollar? Are they weaker? And then what's your strategy? Thank you. I put honey in my tea. And I had ginger. I have been doing ginger shots. Thank you. Yes, I do. I do. Okay, I'm going to get to all the questions. Okay. And then legal and logistics. So when you're moving to another country, right, legally, you need to have a visa, right? You need to have a permit, something that allows you to legally stay in another country for an extended period of time beyond what your passport allows. Because we're from the US, it's still a relatively strong passport. And so you have to think about, like for me, one of the reasons why New Zealand came off the table is at the time, they didn't have a visa that I could qualify for. I was too young for a retirement visa because their retirement visa is age-based, whereas Portugal's is not. And I was too old for a work visa. That limited my options. So again, when you have a 3 to 5 year runway, you have the gift of time. You have the gift to think about, okay, strategically, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? What visa can I qualify for? And then logistics, taxes, which we go into in the Blaxit Global Passport. And we've talked about in the Move to Portugal Virtual Summit. As a US citizen, you have to pay taxes on your worldwide income, even though you don't live in the country anymore. And so you have to understand whether or not, or research whether or not the country that you're moving to has a tax treaty with the United States. And would you be subject to double taxation? You have to have a tax preparer who can understand what credits and things like that you would qualify for as a person who is a US citizen that is living abroad. And then you also need a tax person in the country that you're moving to. Case in point, my taxes in the United States are due in April. As a person who lives abroad, I get an automatic extension. And so I'm not filing my taxes until October. But taxes in Portugal, which I do pay taxes in Portugal, are due in July. So I have a tax preparer who's working on my Portugal taxes. But I had to find out about things that I could qualify, like the NHR. I am interested in pursuing citizenship in Portugal. And citizenship here happens at 5 years, right? Versus the rest of the EU, which is a 10-year timeline. So again, when you have a longer runway, you have the ability to see these things clearly and build a strategy. Now, I will say one of the downsides of having a longer timeline is certain things are going to not be available. Case in point, prices. When I scouted Portugal in 2022, two-bedroom apartments easily in Lisbon for under 1,000, 900, 800. I came back a year and some change later, year and a half later, baby. Now, those numbers are very different, right? So those are some of the things that change. NHR, when I first looked at Portugal, the people who were on the original NHR they had zero tax for 10 years. By the time I moved to the country, it was 10%. And then the people that moved after, they dissolved NHR and became NHR 2.0. And so it's only available to a certain subset. So again, some of these benefits that you might be interested in, these perks, these schemes, may not be available. And again, don't get disheartened. But if some of these benefits are really big determining factors for you, then you may have to think about a plan B. For me, it's great that I have these things available. And I don't know, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because I live here now. I don't know in the absence of it, would I have changed my mind? But, everybody's situation is different. And then again, community and support is important. Having your circle is such a game changer. When I moved to Portugal, it was 12 of us in Blaxit Global Passport that moved to Portugal. So we had built-in community. And I'm happy to say that, many of us are still just as tight, almost 2 years later. And then now I started counting yesterday. It's over 25 people now that have come through Blaxit Global Passport that are living in Portugal. And then there are the people that, contact me that either watch me online or listen to the podcast who've shared their own journeys. So I think building your support network is going to be important. It helps you once you, land to have a soft or softer landing. But it also, like I said, helps you get to goal faster because somebody might have a lead on their apartment they're not interested in, but it's perfect for you. They may have, which I've given out, right? Someone said, "Oh, I like how your hair is." And I'm like, "Oh, there's a stylist, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm going to go today." Like those are the things that you get, the benefits of being in community. And like in Blaxit Global Passport, we have our accountability groups every month that I run. And so again, being able to get in and share those wins and sometimes an occasional L, but that helps you kind of get it off your chest and get the support that you need to help you get to goal. And then your mindset, right? You have to keep fueling the fire within. You don't want the embers to be extinguished. And so, whether that's getting in therapy, combination, also using support, having a coach who can encourage you along the journey. I think journaling is very important. Moving your body, whether it's stretching, yoga, Pilates, riding a bike, whatever it is, to help you keep the clarity and to have horse blinders when it comes to all of the nonsense that happens, right? Talk about tariffs, things like that. There are many things that are outside of your control, right? All you can control is what's going on within, right? And the goal is for you to stay motivated and plug in. Even now, I live abroad, I'm still listening to podcasts. I'm still watching different people because I need to stay motivated. So let me see. The other thing is it's important to think about not getting derailed when you see other people, right? Doing the things that you're doing. We talked about it a little bit earlier, right? Comparison. Comparison is truly the thief of joy, right? There's there are people that I follow, like I said, to this day that keep me inspired. And I also have to, everybody has a what do they call that? Like a undeveloped, for lack of a better word, part of your psyche that will pull you into like lower level, lower frequency thinking. And so you'll say, oh, roll your eyes, right? None of that energy served me. It was when I started to think about, okay, this is great for that person. I'm happy for that person. And it's going to be as good or better when it's my time, right? And so it's important to think about your future you and what you want to envision. And so for me, I had a list. Krishan in the future loved yachts. Right? Future me wanted to vacation all around the world. Future me wanted to do truffle hunting and I mean, a lot of bougie stuff. But these were things that were completely opposite my former life. And especially for those of you who have known me in my former life. But that is why I decided to do it. I took I took all the guardrails off. And excuse me. I took all the guardrails off. And I was like, what is it that I want to do? What is the thing that, no one can tell me no about, right? The only limit is the limit I put on myself. And so I would journal, I would take notes about what I wanted. Like I said before, I would vision board. And now that I look back on this almost 2 years in, I started to accomplish pretty much most of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And so now I'm like, oh, what else is inspiring me? What else does future me want to see? Because instead of playing small and being so compact and in my thinking, I'm more expansive, right? I don't hear impossibility. I think about what's possible. So that is something I would suggest. And recognizing those small wins and the big ones. I guess this resonated with you, Bridget. Yeah, future me. What is future you want? Courtney said, yes, run your own race. Yes, aspire to be inspired. H&D, hey y'all. I was thinking about you guys the other day. So glad to see this topic. We're moving at a pace that brings us peace. That part, right? This move must meet your needs 100%. Is this your life? It's nobody else's life. Some people think, oh yeah, you can leave tomorrow, you can leave today. But some people can't, right? That was not my reality. And if I had given into the part of me that focused on the things that I couldn't do because there were circumstances outside of my control, I wouldn't be, you wouldn't be watching me today, right? And so the life that I live today and the people whose lives that I influence and, the money that I have today all became possible because of decisions. And so you have the ability to make decisions. Some people, say, oh, we're in a 3 to 5 year timeline and figure like, oh, I don't have to plan. I'll deal with it later. But you're not going to stay motivated if you just leave it up to whimsy, right? Literally every year I had a plan. How much money I was going to put away. How much my net worth was going to be by the end of that year. And I would look at it quarterly. I would look at it, at 6 months in. I'd look at it at the end of the year, right? How much dividend income was I making? What was mentioned earlier, decluttering. I didn't have to wait until the last minute before I left. Well, I had a longer runway. I chose not to get a lot of things in my house, got rid of things, donated, sold things. You can be intentional with how you're thinking about it. You know, I remember it was towards the end. So it was, let's see, 2 years before I left. 2 years before I left, my car that was paid off, I had an Audi, and I had gotten that certified pre-owned, and I paid it off like a year after I got it. And 2 years before I moved, the car, I had to get rid of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm like I ride this bad boy till the wheels fall off. And I'm like, I don't want a car payment. And so I decided, instead of like lamenting about the fact that now I have this new expense, I got a Kia. I made sure I traded my car in, got a car payment that was under 200, and rode that bad boy. And it was a very nice car. It was actually one of my favorite cars that I owned. But, you know, that was one of the things that I had to just deal with, right? There are going to be circumstances that, test you. And the closer you get to goal, the more you will be tested. The closer you get to goal, the more you will be tested. And that is to see whether or not you want it as bad as you say. So after a while, I had to shift. I had to reframe. And any challenge I saw, I was like, oh, baby, the Lord's giving me a test. Am I going to pass it? Right? And just come at it with a different energy instead of, oh my God, what's happening to me? Nobody wants me to move abroad. Oh my God, my life sucks. Right? Who is that going to serve? Not a damn person. Right? So you have to reframe. You have to shift the energy that you have within you. Yes. Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, Kias are good cars. Anya said, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, on a daily basis. Oh, you have a Kia too. Yay. Yes. Awesome. Okay, there were some questions I saw. I'm going to take a sip. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get to some of these questions. So, Vincia, do I provide consulting and support? Absolutely, I do. Let me get you a couple of links so you can do coaching with me one-on-one. And I think there was a comment. Yes, PJ asked the same question. Yes, I do. And you can book here. So you pay, and then I email you, and then we find a mutually agreed upon time, and we just have a conversation, and we start to put together the plan. You tell me the things you want to work on, and we tackle them. Okay. Pamela said, yes, community equals support and accountability. Absolutely. And let me tell you, on our accountability calls, it is not uncommon for people to like realize that they have affinity. They might be in a similar job or a complementary field or know of something. Some people live not too far from one another, or even if there's distance, they become, these micro accountability groups where they're talking regularly with one another. And so I love seeing that, right? Like as a facilitator and a group leader, I love seeing that, because that's the things that helped, our 1.0 group. And I tell them, I was like, you guys are some brave souls. Like, you listened to me on a podcast, gotten passport, and then trusted that I was going to get you to Portugal. And so for many of them, they didn't meet me in person until we moved here. And it was like, oh my gosh, right? But that is the power of community. That is the power of intentionality. And that is the power that can come from making a decision, right? And not losing sight of what's possible. Okay. Let me go to the top and see what else you got while I give my voice a little bit of break. Oh no, I got that one. I think, yeah, I think I got all of those. Okay, going back down. Yes, 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 yes. I know some of y'all have been coming over from our Black Utopia. Yes, absolutely. And like I said, I am a big proponent of starting a location independent business, a side hustle that can potentially turn to your main hustle, or anything that gives you additional income. It could be a lot of different things. And maybe that'll be a video that I do. Hey. Oh wow! Oh my gosh! Born in Azores, is it easier to apply for citizenship? Yeah, it's easier in most cases in countries to get citizenship by descent. Asterisk. Um, because immigration has gotten more popular, where people who are leaving their countries and moving abroad, particularly Americans. Some countries are making it harder. So we've been talking about Italy, for example. They decided this year to not extend citizenship by descent to too many generations out. And for the people that were or are pursuing that course of action, that they need to actually pass a language test in addition and reside in the country. So usually my rule of thumb is when one country does it, other countries will follow. And so what I would say for you is get in contact with an immigration attorney and see if there have been any changes into which generations they're going back, because it's still a very fluid process that's happening. But like I said, it was definitely something that was a shock to people in Italy, but it was born out of largely a lot of people who had Italian ancestry and pursuing that, but then not living in the country, not voting, not being able to speak the language. So if that is an opportunity you want to pursue through your paternal grandmother, which is fabulous, and it's available to you, go for it. Just know that usually you need, well, not usually, in every case, you need to have documents. You need to have birth certificates, death certificates, things that just show the relationship. And you'll need to get those documents apostilled, which is basically, certifying that document is legal in another country. It's legally recognized in another country. You might even need some marriage certificates as well. So, hey, Action VJ said he's a passport member that made it to Portugal. Yes, he is. Awesome. Oh, take myself off of mute. 2.0 may derail my move. Wow, how so? And it's not to say that, because a scheme goes away, you just have to know what the exposure might be. And one of the things I will say, and it goes back to what I said about intentionality, is especially in that last year, like I spoke to a tax attorney, tax professional rather. I don't know if he was tax attorney, but I did a tax consultation. I did actually two tax consultations one I did with Katrina Haynes, which she has been part of some of the Blaxit Global workshop, and I think maybe one of the summits. Yes, the first one. And for the US side. And then I had a consultation with someone in Portugal to understand what my tax exposure could be. And the reason why that's important is sometimes people say, oh, well, I have all this money, right? I have whatever, $100,000. All money isn't created equal. All sources of income differ. Certain things are taxed at different rates. It's not like if you have $20,000 that all 20 is going to be subject, right? So there's certain streams of income that I have that are disregarded, right, in Portugal that may or may not change with NHR once I've reached the 10-year mark. But understanding what sources of income you have and then what potential sources of income you may have later, i.e., a pension or Social Security or something like that. You may get an inheritance, right? Asking questions of professionals, and I had to pay these people, right? A couple $100 in order to get the answer, not going into Facebook groups and asking questions or on YouTube, because the answer you get is what you pay for it, right? When I'm talking about big decisions that could potentially, if I get this wrong, cost me a lot of money, no. I don't, that's not something I'm comfortable with gambling. And so what I would say is, be thoughtful about the type of income that you have, the source of those income or sources, and see what other exposure. And again, like I said, understand whether or not there's tax treaties. Because like I said, I'm in a lot of groups and I see people, get sidetracked because something shifts and they're like, oh, I can't. And I'm like, if they had asked this question or if they thought differently, it could have been possible, right? So now, like I said, it goes into that reframe. Instead of thinking of somebody telling me no, it's like, no only means not right now, right? So hopefully that helps. Yes, it does. Absolutely. Yeah, because last year I owed them nothing. Yes, you have to pivot. You have to pivot. Delays not to now. Ooh, come on, come through, Greta. Come through. Let's see. Did I get to everything? Yes. Katrina Haynes is one person that I would recommend in terms of like understanding the US, because you need to. You're always going to have to file your taxes in the United States. And when you live abroad, you have to file an FBAR. And that's on a different timeline. It's not a tax return. It's more of a disclosure document, and it's due in March, I think, every year. But you have to do this document that discloses what you have in non-US accounts. And so I disclose what bank accounts I have in other countries to the US government while you're a citizen. And if you don't, the fee for not filing this little piece of paper is $10,000. Yup. So again, it's important to get in community. It's important to ask the right questions. Yeah, you have to pay. You have to pay. Absolutely. Yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Greta said, I have a family member. A family member finally decided to get her family passports. Wow. Interesting. That is interesting. I think, Pam said, decluttering is work. Took me 6 months to get rid of everything. Wow. Feels great getting rid of all the stuff that's holding us back. Absolutely. I started thinking about, excuse me, the stuff that I have left in my mom's house in Florida that I haven't seen in, well, I was there last year. I haven't seen in like a year. A lot of stuff got to go. A lot of that stuff got to go. Okay, let me see. I think I got to all of the questions, right? LaRonda said, filed my first F bar. Yay, right? It was easy. Takes a couple minutes and it saves you $10,000. Okay, so we're going to do a recap and then I'm going to let you find people go. Okay, so like I said, if you are on a 3 to 5 year timeline, right? I want you to realize if you feel urgency but don't see a clear pathway yet, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. Sustainable freedom, which is what we're talking about, takes strategy. And what we've outlined here are ways in which you can get that done, right? Incrementally, because it's about a strategy, not just an escape. When you're thinking about it, you're not stuck, right? You're not stuck where you are. Your 3 to 5 year timeline allows you to build the runway that you need for your plane to take off and be free and live the life of your dreams. And we also talked about like the 5 ways in which you need to think about it. You need to have your vision. You need to understand your finances. Think about the legal consequences in logistics, and that's like taxes, visa schemes, etc. Get in community. Number 4, get in community, get support. And then your mindset, which is everything, right? Keeping yourself motivated, journaling, keeping your mind and body healthy so that you can be the best that you can possibly be as you live the life that you deserve. Okay, I think we did it, right? LaRonda said, decluttering is like an unpaid job. It's so much work. Yeah, yeah. But you know what? The beauty of the question that you said at the end of it is why do I have so much stuff? One of the things that I cherish about my life here in Europe, most of these places, although my apartment is not small, but most places are more compact and there's a great use of space. And so everything that I bring in my house is intentional. And I know that because I literally moved here with 3 suitcases and a dog. That was it. So every piece of furniture, every book, everything I've purchased. And so I think about the things and I've learned to throw out things. I definitely still, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And there's some organizing that I could do if I would stop traveling in 5 minutes. But that's one of the things, like asking yourself that question raises your self-awareness so that you don't bring that habit to wherever you're going to move. Because sometimes people find themselves accumulating things, possessions, because they're not happy where they are, and that acquiring something makes them feel good in the moment, but it may be hurting them in the long run. Something they have to get rid of later, or money that could have been allocated to moving abroad that is no longer available. Yes, I love this. Picky Girl travels the world. No you for educating on budgeting, saving, and investing. Yes, 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 yes. Greta asked, "What are some retirement books?" Ooh, I'm more of an inspirational person, so there are certain books that I have, read and continue to kind of go back every couple of years. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's not necessarily a retirement book, but it's a mindset shift about, investing. I love that book. And then there was the is it the Money Next Door? The Millionaire Next Door. I was like, The Money Next Door? The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley was another one that was really powerful and impactful. I read both of those a few times. Yeah, I would say those were the two big finance books that created the biggest mind shift. And then as of late, I would say, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the last name? It'll come to me. I'll come back to it. Let me Google it. Cashing Out. Cashing Out. Win the Wealth Game by Walking Away, from Kirsten and Julian Saunders. Pam said, I'm preparing my move abroad budget. I anticipate needing professional services in the future. So I'm accruing and setting aside a small amount for professional services category. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Yes, that is so smart. Look, again, it's not to judge. It's to say that you're part of the progress in changing the behavior starts with awareness. And so the fact that you're being aware is important. So give yourself a pat on the back. Baby steps. Tammy said, I think Money Master the Game is a good book. An overall deep dive into getting educated and ready to handle my finances. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, yes. That's a good one. I haven't read this one, but I've seen quite a few interviews of J.L. Collins. That was one that I stumbled upon him since I've moved, but I've devoured several of his interviews, A Simple Path to Wealth, because I remember he wrote that book for his daughter, and then it, became this like juggernaut. There was another one. Oh yeah, Die with Zero. That was another one. Die with Zero. And that is by Bill Perkins. Bill Perkins. That one is more recent. Let's see. I think I got all of the questions. I think I did, y'all. I did it. Okay. I did it. All right. So I think we are. Ooh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Loranda. Yes, everybody have a great weekend. As you know, I'm super happy because my friends here know my love language. And so I got a text and was like, hey, want to go on a boat ride on Friday? So yes, sunset boat ride for me. So I'm going to rest my voice and get some sleep so I can be on a boat tomorrow in this 90-degree weather. It's going to be so refreshing. So I will see. Yes, get good with money. Yes, that's another one. Tiffany, the Budgetnista. Absolutely. Jersey girl. So I'm going to get some rest. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week. Listen to back episodes of the Blaxit Global Podcast. Maybe it'll be 3-4 more days before this voice is sounding good enough to record an episode. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you next week. Ciao, ciao. Boa noite.